Hi.
Hi.
I'm not the first one to speak, so I'll just sit here quietly.
Hello, good afternoon, and a very, very warm welcome to the Edinburgh International Book Festival. My name is Diana Hope, and I'm really excited and delighted, as you can imagine, to be chairing this event with the wonderful writer, comedian, and mental health campaigner, Ruby Wax. Ruby was born in Illinois.
I heard it.
Ruby was born in Illinois, America, and her first degree was at the University of California at Berkeley, where she did a degree in psychology. And then she came to Glasgow, where she studied at the Royal College of Music and Drama there. She then joined the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield, where she acted and started her writing partnership with Alan Rickman. And then she had a couple of years at the Royal Shakespearean Company, where she acted in major productions. She then began her television career, which was really kind of based on her incredible interviewing technique. You know, brave, courageous, no safety net, and culminated in her brilliant series Ruby Wax Meets, which she interviewed, among other people, Sarah, Duchess of York, and I think 14 million people alone watched that one episode, which is pretty fantastic. And of course, absolutely fabulous, where she not only appeared in several episodes as herself, but was the script editor for the whole series. She's here today with this fantastic book, Sane New World, which has arisen from the fact that she has done, since her original degree, she's done a further 2 degrees, one in Regent College in London, and she's about to graduate this September from Oxford with a, with an MA in Mindfulness, cognitive-based science. And the book is not a self-help book, not a self-help book. It's a fantastic manual. She goes straight into the kind of hard science of the brain. She lays it in front of us lucidly, generously, and understandably. It's a very, very important book, very hopeful book, and it's for everybody, not just people who suffer from any form of depression. So could you please welcome, a huge welcome for the wonderful Ruby Wax.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me here? All right, then I'll just stand here. I'll stand here. I'll just tell you how I sort of shifted into this terrain is that a few years back I found myself with the title Poster Girl for Mental Illness. And I'll just quickly explain because it leads into the book. I wasn't prepared to say that I had depression, but Comic Relief outed me by they asked if they could take a picture of me because they give some money to mental illness. So I said sure, and I thought it was going to be a little postage-size stamp one, you know, tiny in the back of a matchbox. But it was a gigantic poster of me in every tube station that said, "This woman has mental illness. Please help her." It was and I hurled myself in front of it, but then there were more, and they just were endless down those stairs. So I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a show and make that look like it's my publicity poster. Think it on your feet. So I said, Ruby, you've got a disability, use it. So for the next 2 years, I toured mental institutions, and I think they loved it. They weren't always facing me, but I think they liked it. And I always say, if you can make a schizophrenic laugh, you're halfway to Broadway. So anyway, then in the second half, the audience would ask questions, and you know, they were fantastic questions. And then I took the show to the West End, and it's been in Australia and Cape Town and Los Angeles, and the audience who supposedly aren't mentally ill asked the same questions. So I became really fascinated with what were the answers to those questions. So I guess that's how this book came about, and also at the same time, I was interested. First of all, I didn't mean to go into television. I was going to be a psychologist, but then I thought I'd combine it with drama. but then narcissism took over and it was too lucrative, so I started to interview people. And anyway, so then I always swore when I was a certain age I'd go back to learning about the brain, but now you can actually see into the brain. So that's what's so thrilling about it. And I don't understand why it's not on every headline that, okay, they don't know that much, but we can see how people think. And there are ways to regulate the brain so that we're not just at the mercy of stress and blaming it on the internet and blaming it on the Muslims and blaming it on the recession and David Cameron, like he dropped from heaven. We voted him in. You know, we blame it, but it all comes from here, you know, the mothership. This is where it all starts. And if you don't understand the brain, you can blame it on everything. So we have to now start to focus in on how this machinery actually works, because power is knowledge. So anyway, I decided I would learn about the brain after therapy. I was a crap therapist. And this is terrible. I always say it when women are about, you know, during menopause, and they realize men aren't going to hit on them anymore, they usually take up psychotherapy. It's true. Anyway, I loved it when I first went there because it was a relief from television. You know, I went to the cafeteria. It was like returning to school, and I had my book. I loved it, and a whole new group of friends. But I really wanted to know what goes on inside, so I crashed a course. I know I have to talk fast. At UCL, University College London, in neuroscience, and I told all the students there that I had a disease that made me look really old. And then they found out I really was old, but they still liked me because I had the car. That's why they liked me. So then, anyway, I was really fascinated by that point, and I could go both ways on this. Then I had a serious the biggest nervous depression breakdown I ever had in my life, and I said, this is not going to happen again. Well, it will, but I just want to be able to I want to be able to self-regulate. So I researched, and it's cognitive therapy and mindfulness that have the best results as far as relapse and as far as being able to not run to a shrink every time you're sick, because I've already dumped my bank account. I think they're doing a fabulous thing, but I really ran out of cash. And I'd always leave their office thinking I know exactly who I am, and then I'd get to the tube station and I'd forget again. So I decided to do mindfulness, and basically Mark Williams, who's the founder, was at Oxford, and he said, he gave me an 8-week course, and then I said, but this is fascinating, I want to know the brain research. So he said, unfortunately, you'll have to get into Oxford. Well, I crossed out some of my old test results, and then because I give great interview, and I did have some good grades, so I shipped those in. Anyway, I got into Oxford, and that probably is the happiest time of my life. And I'll be wearing the bat wings and the hat in September, so if any of you'd like to come to Oxford, you can see that performance. So anyway, what I found so fascinating is that, for example, the audience would always say, why the critical voices? You know, we all have it. Let me tell you, and it was so refreshing when I learned that everybody has this. It made me feel less of a freak. Because the thing is, and what I used to say in my show is, we have no instruction manual. And we always, you know, even domestic appliances have instruction manuals. It says, you know, on washing machines, put in white powder. You know, if I tried that, I'd end up in rehab. So we all have it, and we all think we're alone on this. And believe me, in all the countries I've been in, nobody has a voice in their head that says, what a wonderful thing you've just done there. And may I say how attractive you are today? Nobody has it. So I just basically, I mean, I'm simplifying it, but to me this like feels, you know, to understand we all have the same machinery under the scalp. We aren't that different. It's just that, you know, basically genetics, culture, how your neurons are formed, every experience make you who you are. But believe me, you can change throughout your life. There's this fantastic thing. It's not, I didn't go on a weekend workshop to meet my inner angel. This is now in research. There's neuroplasticity. So you can change pretty much the way you think. I mean, you come in with the genes. It's like a deck of cards, but how you play it is up to you. I mean, not in the legs, I'll never be in the Bolshoi. But so I'm telling you, if I can get into Oxford, and I didn't even graduate from the Busy Beaver Nursery School, look it up, that's the real name. That's evidence of neuroplasticity. Of course, you don't do it with a pill or overnight. It's like going to a gym. You can't get a six-pack with one sit-up. You got to really work and work and work. It's discipline. Well, anyway, because I have depression, I really needed to focus. Maybe if, with people with a bad back have to do a lot of exercises. And so basically the inner voices, which I find fascinating, this is very basic, but evolution meant it as a good thing. It didn't know the 21st century was going to happen. It wasn't prepared for this, which is none of us are. It's just too hard and too fast and too full of fear. We don't have the bandwidth. But earlier, you know how animals are vigilant? Who has a cat? You know how they're always looking around? Well, we were like that too. We always had to look for, danger. And if we didn't, we'd be picked off by the next predator. So this was it in our DNA. We would look for trouble. And then when language came around 50,000 years ago, we started to put words to those constant sensations of trouble. But our brain can't tell the difference if it's right behind our backs, the danger, or it's 20,000 miles away. So now everything's perceived as danger. So it's, we have to know now that there's a 3.6 earthquake in Thong Thong Thong, or there's going to be a shark attack in Malawi. So all of this keeps us in a high state of anxiety and fear. And also, even social things become fearful. So it's, oh my God, I have to write an email. Oh my God, does my behind look too big? Oh my God, why aren't I Kate Moss? So with all the, with all the magazines, with all the pressure of needing to be like the next guy, with the constant incoming of bad news, we are really destined for not the 1 in 4, this is 4 in 4. And they say by 2020, the thing that will kill us is stress. So to me, this became, should I go on with another area? Another area I thought was so interesting, which again, I thought was just me, which is the constant busyness, that we're constantly, people, God forbid you say, I'm not doing anything, you'll never be asked to a dinner party again. Never. People say to me, am I busy? I say, I've had 2 heart attacks. And they go, that's fantastic. That's great. You must be doing really well. So the busyness is because, again, for survival, we have this thing called dopamine, and we all have it. And this is what makes us survive. So when we foraged for food, the ones who foraged the best were the ones that survived. And then they would, as we were eating, we would already be looking for the next environment that was similar so we could eat again. Now, in the 21st century, there's no end to it. There's just too much to eat. There's 20,000 miles of shopping mall. How do you know when you have enough? So when you finally get that Jimmy Choo shoe, you start already looking for other shoe-rich environments. You're already primed to get the next one. And then you're primed so much, you finally see a woman with a Jimmy Choo shoe, you want to gnaw her ankle off. So there's no end to it. There's just too much on offer. So we never have enough. And I found that remarkable. And of course, if you really look into it, we're driven by our chemicals. Please don't think there's anything else. We are walking cookbooks. So in my book, I talk about parts of the brain, but I think I make it very accessible. But we are a combination of all those parts. So I'd like to just read a little bit, maybe the end of the book, just so you don't have to buy it. I hope I've read the right bits. So critical voices, I did. All right, so my conclusion is, by the way, at the very end of the book, I start to suggest ways to self-regulate. If mindfulness isn't your thing, I have other suggestions. It happened to work for me. I have had, listen, I'm not an evangelist. For 5 years, I haven't had a serious depression, but it will come again. But at least I have a kind of toolkit. I can hear the early pitter-patter of the abusive voices, and they're different than the normal, boy, did you fuck up, everybody hates you, you're a failure. That's my normal theme song, which I'm sure is yours too. Why are you looking at me? You know how you see people through your own little lens because you remind me of somebody. I mean, we never see a person for the first time. We go back in our filing cabinet trying to think, who does she remind me of, so that, I kill you before you kill me. So we really, again, have to be aware how the mind works so that I don't stereotype you. because then your world gets smaller and smaller and you get everybody wrong. Anyway, so at the very end I say, when you were a kid, those neurons were firing every second. Everything was novel and exciting. And you'd say things like, I want to be a fireman or an astronaut with absolutely no consideration of qualifications required. I wanted to be a mermaid. Everything was possible. You can look at a snowflake for hours and configure cloud clusters as neighborhoods. That cloud is my house and that one is my bedroom, and I can jump to your cloud and visit and have tea. Everything was fresh back then and in full living technicolor, and you were excited out of your mind. You get older, some asshole tells you you can't be a mermaid for whatever reason, or you can't fly like Superman, and then as you get older, your world gets tinier and tinier because you believe you don't have options until you die in a rut. And no one seems to care that we end up growing to such a tiny part of our potential. We just think, oh, well, this is how I ended up. We say things about old people. Oh, that's grandma, or boo-boo, or cree-cree, or whatever we're calling them. When you're old, you're always called something after a pet. Or, oh, that's just Granny. She does the same thing every day. She has tea at 4, then she walks her dog at 5, nappies at 6, then Betty buys. This is how and why our brains atrophy, because we start to say the same thing over and over again without anyone telling you, shut up, you said that before. When you're old, you don't want to change chairs, countries. When you're old, you don't want to change chairs, countries, learn the tango, parachute jump. You're old, what's the worst that could happen? I think I'm saying you should. We're already too cognitively strong. Oh, I was talking about, you know, some people play crosswords and Sudoku. That's not what you're supposed to do, because that just keeps you embedded in that groove. What I'm saying is you take a taste of everything and change your habits. Don't walk the dog that way. Walk him a different way. And if you allow your thoughts to drive you, and you believe that your reality is the same as everyone else's, you'll become hard, judgmental, intolerant, and will choke you in the end with bitterness. The lens through which you see yourself and your world will become more and more narrow until it's dull and you're dull and your world is dull. But you need to recognize that we are continuously in flux and everything changes constantly, even you. We're always in a state of becoming. Now, Joe, it's our ability to regulate our attention. I'm going to jump to the end, sorry. Well, it's our... Okay, and it doesn't matter how much you have to let go of. If you only end up with the gift of simply noticing things as they are for the first time, notice their novelty, it will outweigh how much stuff you've accumulated or what job you ended up with. The idea is to be able to let go so much that in the end you can say to your body, thanks for the ride, and still be smiling. And then I just say at the end, I hope if nothing else, we move toward a world where it's not survival of the fittest, but survival of the wisest. So. Anyway, sorry I read it badly, but that's it. I'm not a great reader.
It is a most amazing book. It really is. You're going to, you know, it starts off obviously very funny, incredibly insightful, very, very perceptive, and then there's incredibly accessible, you know, proper brain science. And it's ultimately so hopeful, you know, as you said in that last bit, that we can, you know, rewire ourselves and learn remake the brain. But let's start by just talking about 1 in 4, because you probably have a lot of people say to you that it must be because you and Stephen Fry are sort of on stage all the time, geniuses, clever, that this kind of Van Gogh slip between creativity and depression.
Well, let's put it to rest.
Let's put it to rest.
First of all, the book is not, there is a chapter for the mad and then the normal mad. And then it goes into neuroscience. But, so it isn't a book simply for mental illness. But let's just stop this right now. If 1 in 4 people in the world throughout time have had a mental illness, not that many people are funny or comedians, you know, or artists. They may be narcissistic, and they may be, you know, maniacal in some other way, but everybody here knows, well, the 1 in 4 know, depression is not about sadness or about having a hissy fit. It's when you're dead on arrival. There is no person left. You're a block of cement with no personality. And also, let me just say, your inside doesn't know what your outside does for a living. So it's like saying, do all weather girls get cancer? Yeah. So that's all I need to say.
That's good. So if anyone was going to ask a question during the long time we're going to leave for questions that was predicated on that, get a new question. So 1 in 4. You talk very alarmingly, of course, about the fact that we are so busy and that we and our children are likely to suffer. And you talk again about the raised levels of cortisol. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Well, again, it's a drug we all have, cortisol, and we need it. Again, your body needs this stuff to, to get you ready for fight or flight. Otherwise, really, you'd be mowed down by the next truck passing. So you need it. And what happens when this cortisol gushes up, because your amygdala, which is your alarm button, goes on, is really things to save your life. So your heartbeat goes up, the blood rushes to your peripheries to get you ready to rumble. Your actual memory shuts down, the hippocampus, because all you want to do is remember, what did you do last time you were in danger? You don't want to start, studying French. Your sex drive goes down because you don't want to be screwing when you're about to be eaten by a lion. Your digestive system goes down. All this, is just to get you ready, either to get out of there or to take it on. Here's the problem, as I said before, we never come down. We don't have a braking system. It's a real glitch in human nature that we don't know when to pull it. And none of us really have been trained to know where's our tipping point. We all want to be like somebody, like, hey, they have a great life. Richard Branson, he jumps out of planes, they go weekend skiing in Courchevel. If somebody tells you they go to relax, they go jumping out of a helicopter and really walk away because they're a psychopath. But we admire these people that seem to keep going. They die first. So we don't have, I can't run. If I ran, my knees would collapse. But you feel, oh God, everybody else is doing it. So the cortisol never comes down. And eventually that's what causes, forget about depression, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, criminality, and probably every disease or problem we have in the world right now is from that cortisol that won't stop gushing.
Oliver James has said in one of his books that children who are put to nurseries when they're very little, their cortisol levels are raised unnaturally throughout their childhoods. And you're very good in the book about children and children being taught self-regulation. Do you want to say a little bit about the card system?
Now?
Yeah.
Well, it's starting in schools because even in my time, there wasn't cutting. This is a new thing. So clearly things are getting peculiar. And kids especially suffer a lot of shame if they're different. So they are starting to teach for mindfulness, but also emotional intelligence, because we're just taught to be academically brilliant. And what's funny is this day, the guys who are the most academically brilliant, who run the companies like Madoff, are the ones that will screw you the hardest. So they're teaching kids that how their emotions work. So, for example, one of the things is when a kid has a hissy fit, he understands it's in him. So he holds up a red card. And when those hormones come down, he holds up a yellow card. And when he's flatline again, he holds up a green card. And then the teacher will talk through what just happened so that he won't blame it on kids saying, he bullied me, he did that. He'll understand that his levels went up. And when they do go up, move away from the next guy, even in business. When, guys start having a business meeting or women and their antlers lock, stop the meeting because now you're wasting money and time. We should have white flags where we go, we'll come back to you on this one. Most meetings are not meetings. They're animals taking each other on. So if you teach kids that, imagine how ahead of the game they'll be.
You mentioned shame there. I mean, there is still, unfortunately, a huge stigma associated with mental health problems. And you describe this very touchingly in the book, in your own experience of interviewing people and then being driven to the Priory at night. And how long do you think we can bear to continue that as a society? People being afraid of losing their jobs because they have had mental health issues.
Well, now we're going to mental health again.
Yes.
Yeah, and the whole, I know.
When you said about shame, I just thought, it's so, because
I am so interested in, I mean, I am the 1 in 4, and there's probably most of these, they are. But, 4 and 4, we're still suffering the same thing. I did. I was in an institution and I had to interview somebody with depression. So my husband picked me up and everybody in the institution said, you must be crazy, which is real, That's like getting 5 stars. So I said, but I didn't want to lose my job, so I went and I interviewed the person who had depression, and they were looking at me like, boy, you think I'm nuts? And then my husband picked me up and he took me back to the institution. Because what I want to say is, people say, should I come out and say it? Not at this time, because chances are big if you have that on your CV, good luck getting a job. And a lot of people that are in work and say they have depression find themselves out of a job. It won't be for mental illness, and then they're ostracized. So it's about the law that would have to change.
Because you say in the book it's rather like the AIDS, the way that people felt about
gays
gay
or
people
AIDS
and about AIDS.
And so quickly.
Yeah, and
it
now
changed.
we've changed.
Yeah,
so
and
hopefully.
now we're the latest taboo.
And brain imaging presumably will also help this change. And you also say in the book that in some languages the word for depression. Is a physical thing, like,
yeah,
diabetes.
They don't use the word. It's like sadness would mean diabetes.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But what were you saying before that about about the shame of it?
Oh yes, just about the stigma and the fact that in our lifetimes we've seen,
Oh yeah, I was thinking
people.
that we should use their old banners, the rainbow ones, and get there, because they don't need them anymore, and then go on marches, and say that if we were all working together as a team. But the problem, and it was the problem with the gay movement, is that it's so shameful that everybody hunkers down and says, you go first. So I think it would be wonderful if we started, when I do my shows in different countries once a week, bully for me, but I ask the audience, ask me questions, but I'm not a professional, though we do have great conversations, but I say, come back on Tuesday or whatever. And it's the night my show is dark. And so members of the public can come in free, and I'd bring them neuroscientists or professional people on drugs, and they could ask all those questions. And then we'd have somebody like Marjorie Wallace from Sane and a whole band of volunteers. So the audience could ask those questions or make a contact, because where are you going to find help? And I would serve cookies. And that was the most kind of rewarding thing of the job. And the people were desperate, saying, I don't know where else to go. So if we could have places like AA, because they've got one on every block, and they're so organized. And I always think, how are they so organized? These people are drunks. Well, why can't the 1 in 4 have, just somebody volunteers a beauty salon in Yorkshire, and they get a gold, they get stars. And just on Monday nights. I'm not talking psychopaths. I'm just talking about people who've had it.
Yeah.
And it would be modulated, moderated. I'm dyslexic. That was the wrong word.
It's a great idea.
But that would, anyway, if anybody wants to run with that one, I'll come and talk at every one of them. Or serve cookies.
Can you just define mindfulness? Is that?
Well, there's cognitive therapy.
Yep.
Whereas, do anybody here know what that is? Yeah. But it's an ex-zeitgeist because, again, we don't have the money and we don't have the time to see therapists anymore. And a lot of these problems would be solved if churches were, if there was still religion. I don't mean me against them. I mean, praying used to be a great way of turning inward. Yeah. But again, we're all outward. I want. So mindfulness, I'll go to that rather than cognitive therapy, is a way of, those voices that go in your head, it's a way of kind of sitting back, understanding that you have certain theme songs without being hard on yourself. So I can still hear you're an asshole, you're whatever, but if you, I know this sounds weird, okay, just go with me on this. When you have the voices and they're very intense, your amygdala is on, especially when you get nervous, it's even louder. If you use another part of your brain, again, they can see this in a scanner, if you listen to sound, just listen to sound, or you feel the weight of your bum on your seat, or your feet on the ground, anything that's physical, a sense. It could be food, it could be sight, it could be hearing. If you do that, the insula lights up, which means your brain can actually be in 2 modes at once. It can't be in high alarm and feeling a sense at the same time. But it's not emptying your mind, believe me. It only empties when you're dead. But it's really learning how to go to, I'm sure that's why Arabs have those beads. And the way I could see it was working when I used to do comedy, and I'd start to get that, oh my God, everybody hates me. when an audience feel your fear, they turn into a kind of blood-hungry crowd. It must be something left over from the runt of the litter has to die, we have to kill it. So I get more and more desperate because these voices, you know, they don't go down, they go up. And of course the hippocampus, the memory's affected, so I can't remember my next line. Well, just because of practicing mindfulness, it's not, you know, a white light. Because I practice, I can actually start to focus on the feel of the ground under my thing, and actually my eyes start to soften. The cortisol actually comes down, the adrenaline starts to come down. I never forgot a line for the last 5 years because you're cooler. So it's a way of staying cool, let's say with your boss or whatever. Bring your levels down, bring that cortisol down, and there's different ways to do it, but it isn't a holy experience. It's really learning how to manage your own brain. There are other ways. Cognitive would be good. Some people would just have to go and look at a picture of their, you know, just to understand before you go into something that's going to be stressful, deal with yourself first. Otherwise, we always work like neural Wi-Fi. If I'm scared, I'm going to scare you. And so that would go right through that would go through a country, an organization. So again, with the kids, learn your chemicals are up. And even if you can't get them down, at least knowing that they're up means you could even say to the person, I'm a little nervous. That would settle them down rather than thinking, she hates me. Does that make sense? I'm making it very quick.
No, it's so clear, so beautifully expressed in the book. I think we'll go with some questions from the floor, because I know this is just such a great opportunity for you to ask questions to Ruby. Now, we've got a roving mic, so please wait for that. We'll go with you first, and then we'll go up here and in the middle. Have you got the mic? Yeah, there's a guy here in the red shirt. And then you want to take the other mic up to the top? Is that a bad idea? Just for the next question, the hand's still up. Sorry, on you go.
Okay,
Hi.
Thank you very much. I wonder if you could give my partner advice on living with a depressive.
Your partner?
My partner.
Hi. Oh, you're the depressive?
Yeah, I'm the depressive,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
She doesn't understand that it doesn't go away, and she thinks, you know, in circumstances where I should be happy, and I agree, you know, sometimes you can be just totally, as you said, dead. So, any advice for her to help her understand that this is how we are?
Well, whatever you do, don't say perk up to him, because he will never speak to you again. Look, I mean, you could go to Mind or Sane or whatever and just read about this thing. Just imagine, I'm sorry, that the guy has diabetes or he has a tumor or whatever. It is, they can see in a scanner, they can see Alzheimer's. Now, if he had Alzheimer's, would you tell him to come on, remember what happened yesterday? Would you do that to him? That's also in his brain. Or schizophrenia, or there's other illnesses where you see your mother, but she doesn't, you don't recognize her. It's the same thing. It's a break in the brain. I always say, why can every other organ in your body get sick and you get sympathy except the brain? And that's the mothership. So he's ill. He's really ill. And treat him the way you would treat anyone with illness, with love and patience. And he should really, and maybe you, again, this walk-in thing, meet other people who have, you know, spouses or whatever that have mental illness, because it's almost harder on the caregiver. So, you know, it would be helpful if she could meet people. So maybe there's other people that could meet her after this.
Okay, there was a guy up the back. Have you got the mic?
I
Where
have.
are you?
Hello, Ruby. Thank you for coming.
Where are you?
I'm here.
Oh,
right.
hi.
Okay, great.
Hello.
I'm a little nervous.
Well, put your feet on the ground and breathe.
Thank you. Absolutely. You talk in the book, I haven't read the whole book, I have to admit, but you talk in the book very eloquently on people that are living their daily lives. And I always feel it's very much pitched at people who are making their own choices and living their lives the way they want to. I and other mothers are in a situation where we're looking after very ill children, and we have older people in the audience who are probably looking after very sick and ill parents. And that, as you said earlier on, it narrows your world, and it's not through choice, it's through your situation. It's something you have to do. You have to look after your very sick child who will be in hospital 3, 4, 5 times a year and may not make it through to the end of the next year. So what I'm probably trying to say is a first aid kit, you have something, you know, when you're in that situation, and it really is a situation where you're being told, actually, we've got to take this child to HDU, we've got to take this child through to Edinburgh now to put her on a ventilator. Wow. These are real situations for people, and where mindfulness does work, I do feel sometimes that, you know, something else is going to take over. So have you been pushed to the limit yourself?
If you're in a crisis situation like that, you're in full alarm. Don't waste your money, don't waste your time. You're in full alarm. You know, when people are in to me, you know, somebody might, when you're in that kind of state, don't meditate. Don't go to, you're gone, right? And maybe you need that alarm system. But when you're down, and there will be moments where you'll calm down, it's really good to find, you know, those tools. Practice, you know, either bringing the cortisol down, like you would go to a gym. When you're really sick, you're not going to go, but you just practice it. Because part of the emergency is being fearful of fear, or being stressed because of stress. You know, people go, oh, I shouldn't be like this. This is terrible, what's happening. You're going to be in pain. Just feel, you know, pain is pain, but suffering is optional. You are going to be on high alarm, there's no question. But when you're not, for the sake of your health, try to bring your heart down. You know, if you need to see a shrink, if you need to, you know, isolate yourself for a minute, otherwise you'll flood yourself, and that'll be no good for your kid.
Thank you. There's someone here and then someone on the end of the same row. If you keep your hands up, please, just so, thank you. Yeah, that's great. And then we'll come to you. And is there anyone over here that I'm missing? Yeah, someone there.
Right. I read an article you were interviewed in a magazine recently, and I gave it to a friend of mine. She didn't give me it back.
You want me to give it to you again? I don't know what.
Because I hadn't digested the whole thing, but I became ill about a year and a half ago, and my husband called an ambulance, and I ended up being hospitalized 6 to 8 weeks, and again this time last year, and I'm now on medication. And without putting too fine a point on it, it's been quite a living experience. But I take every day at the time. What I would like to ask you is, I am on medication, and it's had to be regulated, and I would like to think that not soon I could learn to manage it
without the medication. Well, again, I'm going to ask you, if you had diabetes or you had cancer, would you go without chemo?
No.
Okay, then why is there shame in taking an antidepressant? I take antidepressants. I have to do it every day.
I think initially that's what I was going to ask you. Why are you still taking medication?
Of course I'm on medication. Right. Yeah, why should I? And I think somebody's going to throw an arrow in my head. It's more dangerous to not take medication if you really have it. If you don't have it, the GP's probably trying to get you off his back. If you're just sad. But if you're ill, if you have emotions and there's nothing wrong, you've got depression.
Well, can we?
Yeah. Stay on your medication. What's the big deal?
I was born and have the same month and the same year as Mick Jagger. Not that he's got anything to do with it.
Yeah, stay on the medication.
There's one here. There's a guy here. And then we'll come to you.
Hi, Ruby. Hi, Diana.
Where are you?
It's just me over here in the middle with an Aussie accent. I've just kind of got into this thing of mindfulness, so I'm finding it quite fascinating, and I think you've summed it up very succinctly there. But what I wanted to know, when you finish this degree in September from Oxford, are you going to relay your knowledge, like, for example, with talk? How are we going to keep up with you and your new endeavors?
Well, when I graduated, I had to write a thesis like everybody else, but they let me write a show, which is my next show and film it, and so that's how I got my degree. So that show is about all this stuff.
And will that be
it'll
just
be
on
funny.
TV?
No, not on television.
Oh, we
it'll
can
either
go out and
live.
see
I'll
it.
be touring, and I'll go to Australia.
Oh, well, I live here now.
But I'll
so
come to
that's
Scotland, and that's my next show. But I'll probably take, well, I don't know. I love doing institutions. These are my people. So I might try it with them, and then take it to theaters. Because I mean, to me, this new form of, it's called infotainment. I don't know many people do it, but you're making people laugh because that's the best way to ingest information, and you're not whining. And again, the brain is the most interesting thing. So at UCLA, all the students there, I've just been working with them, are going to make a whole digital reality, so you can actually see thoughts and see brains and see how synapses work, even though I'll be doing comedy in front of it.
Okay, thank you.
So that'll come.
Okay, and there was one here, and then someone up the back after that. Someone here, someone here. Yeah, just keep going. Somebody there.
Oh.
Then you. Then you.
Hi there. I think this probably links a bit with the person who was saying about choice. And you've said about you talking to children about, so they're learning about this early. I wonder if you'd got any thoughts about like addressing the culture that is so about like the thing that's in the press at the moment about strivers and skivers, and that you said about, I can relate to the thing you said about having been in that really black hole and gone, actually, I don't want this to happen again. I need to learn how to stop it. And having noticed it early and gone to something, gone, okay, if I do this, this is going to be straw that breaks the camel's back. And actually, the result was, well, everyone gets treated the same. You have to do that. And yes, someone then went to the occupational health department and said, well, if you won't declare her unfit, I'll find another way of getting rid of her. But the culture has become like, even if you have that insight and that knowledge and you go, I know I need, mindfulness is good, that pacing ourselves is good, learning all the coping stuff is good. We're in a world where the striving bit is still what the culture is telling you to do. So how do we address the culture?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that the culture is the culture. You know, and people write these books going, the kids should get off the internet, it's the way it is. We're in it, okay? Unless I'm a political activist, you know, that's what I was saying. You know, people at dinner parties yapping on and on what they should do in Syria. What, you're an expert? Okay, if I'm going to Syria, I can shut up. But we're in this, okay? The only thing we're responsible for is whatever you need to not attach to the kind of cultural hysteria. I know this is awful, but I don't read newspapers. I don't want my head filled. I want to have that. I'm getting it anyway, the information. You know, it's memes. You know, I have to know who's been murdered. It just, you know, it's important that I know that somebody was killed in Detroit. So you just really have to, not block it, but just pull back if it's pushing you over the edge. My kid, you know, plays video games. Okay, I can have a heart attack. The guy's a programmer now. I'm glad he did. You know, mama needs new shoes. But, you know, take care of your own, take care of yourself. Really, you cannot heal the world. That's the way it is. This is the culture. Unless you're a fighter or a feminist or whatever, take it on. But I'm not. I don't have time.
There's a question.
I mean, that's why mindfulness or these things are interesting. It's like a ripple. If I can cool it with myself, I'm not going to, you know, you want to stop war, stop it in yourself. Because the war's up here.
We're going with the guy up here because he's got the mic already, and then this lady in the denim with the flowery. Yep. So you're on. Thank you.
Ruby, you mentioned religion.
I don't know where you are.
He's there, just on the aisle.
Okay. Hi.
You mentioned religion earlier on, and I was just wondering where your studies had left you in terms of your thinking about what you would regard as the helpful aspects of religion and other, you know, spiritual practices in terms of the kinds of issues you're talking about, and perhaps also what the unhelpful aspects of religion are.
Well, religion has never been my thing of, you know, I don't get it, because to me it's them and us, and it exasperates that. But I think that when people would go into, you know, a quiet mode and maybe become aware of themselves in the bigger scheme of things, was that the basis of religion? you know, I heard that the Jews started off with the right idea, you know, with the Kabbalah, whatever. I don't know what that is, but everybody started off with the right idea. Then it got marketed, and then, you know, if you're a Christian, I'm not speaking to you. So I don't mean religion in that sense. But the important thing, whatever it is you do, it shouldn't be a repression, you know, a running away. You can do triathlons as much as you want. If you don't deal with those voices, they're going to come up and bite you in the ass. So whatever you do, make sure it's about understanding and having compassion for yourself. Because unless you do, you can't have it for her or the next guy. You can fake it, and a lot of religion does that now. You know, we're giving so much, but treating the help like a slave. So I don't know, but if it works for you and it gives you solace and empathy, then call it whatever you want.
Yeah, did you have a question?
You say that.
Could you hold it?
You say that you'll probably have another depression, but surely that thought would make you have another depression, especially for somebody so well equipped like you, whereas people aren't. I mean, you can cope with it very well because you're well equipped.
Well, you know, depression isn't something you can will away. And usually when you have 3 or more episodes, chances are big it's coming again. I don't get up every morning. I mean, I've got the voices all the time, you know, saying, you're too old, everybody thinks you're an idiot. We all have this kind of self-critical voice. It could also come from mommy and daddy, but, you know, who didn't mean it. They meant to say, don't, you know, watch out for the electric socket, don't chew on it, don't try to eat the dog, you know. They were so it's always don't, you should have. There's a kind of thing, you know, even if you had wonderful parents, we have a negative proclivity. So I do see, you know, it does come through. It's just that I don't have to obey it. You know, a lot of people, the voices say, get up, do this, do this. If you do that, it'll run you ragged. So by practicing how to hold an anchor and just letting the ticker tape go, when you want to get up and, like, you know, kick ass, you will. This isn't about turning you into a vegetable. But when you just don't want to keep, you know, I wanted to concentrate on my kids when they were little, but I didn't. I was on the phone all the time. So they asked me, you know, they thought I had ears that were 2 telephones. And they keep asking me what they were like when they were kids, and I really don't remember because I was working. So I think with the stuff I'm doing now, you know, we're all junkies for adrenaline. I love, you know, when you start working really fast. Some people have it with cleaning. But my mother did. My mother would have washed this entire ceiling. But you know, this kind of learning to focus, I mean, that's what mindfulness really is. The intentional focus is that I can pull that adrenaline down, which is so addictive to us. You know, it's like smoking, it's like Coke. Not that I ever tried it, but you know, we want to keep going. It's the dopamine. But with the bringing it back to the body or the breathing, you'll go, come on, my kids are here. I will never have this opportunity. I really want to make a phone call. Okay, but now I'm with you. The word present comes into it, which most of us only go into by accident. So it gives you an opportunity to say, I want to be in the future or the past, or I want to be right now. But there was Harvard came out with some research that said 47% of our time is spent mind wandering. But it isn't nobody's happy about that mind wandering. It isn't to feel good. It's haunting. You know, you don't even know where you are. So this is a means to get us to be able to, like, look at that person and remember their face rather than just using them and then somebody else and then a sunset and then you were on holiday, but what did that look like? So, okay, it comes through. I have depression, but I don't have to obey it. But I'm being realistic. Usually people with it do have it again, but I'll dodge the bullets. It won't kill me as much as it's used to because it won't take me by surprise.
Right, I've completely lost track of where the mic is now.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not your fault, it's all my fault. Who's actually got the mic on this side? Oh, you still got it, right, okay, because we've got a question here, and then there's another one there who's been waiting, and one more here. Sorry, we're going to fit in as many as we can. So this, and then there.
Hi.
Hi,
Yeah.
Ruby.
Oh, hi.
Just over here.
a lot of my friends who work for the Patients' Council at the Royal Edinburgh.
I can't hear you.
Speak up.
So my friends and I work at the Royal Edinburgh, you know, the psychiatric hospital in Edinburgh, and we're going through a reprovisioning to get a new hospital. But we just beginning to feel, when is the NHS going to stop making mental health the kind of poor relation of health, when, as you say, that stress is causing a lot of physical problems as well.
Well, you know that. You work in it.
Yeah, it's just, but how do we get them to put more research, as you're saying, there's more research being done, but how do we get them to sit up and listen and get this sorted and stop letting people down, or youngsters, you know, presenting at NHS, at A&E, and then turned away and kill themselves. It's awful.
Yeah.
I don't know how we
I don't
get
know.
them to
Who
listen.
did the marketing for breast cancer? You know, with those ribbons?
Yeah.
You know, who did it for HIV?
Yeah.
I mean, that, you know, somebody said if mental illness had the money from all of those things, we would have cured it.
Yeah.
And also, more people die of depression or mental illness than every single disease put together. Then, I mean, I don't have the numbers here. I think than every disease put together. And if you think about what brings, you know, what hurts your, you know, every, you know, cancer is caused sometimes. I'm not saying always, you know, you don't blame yourself, but a lot of cancers and some diabetes too, is caused by this. And a lot of times it's anxiety about the whole illness. So in a sense, you can give yourself a lot of, you know, cardiac pressure because this is you know, so terrifying. The only place to put the money is the brain, to me.
Well, that's just, I don't know.
You know, even if you don't care, when you get mugged or raped now or whenever, it's because somebody was mentally ill. Use your brain.
Exactly, and it's too often there's resources put in when it's too late, crisis, forensic service.
Well, we
So
have
you
to
have
go
to
on a
give up
march,
that mic.
or we have to get a little ribbon, you know, or people have to get together, otherwise it won't happen.
Right, we're going to have one more question here.
Hi Ruby, it's great to see you
Hi.
and hear you. I've been following you for a while, not in a bad way. It's just a couple of very quick points. I know you're a very wanted woman. I love the idea of breaking old habits, so I will try and walk my dog backwards tonight and see what he thinks.
The dog will love it.
Probably.
It's great dog.
Second point, I have read, I've read you, I've heard you. I find you being really, really hard on yourself sometimes, and I would like to know why that is. And very briefly, third question, would you give your book to a 16-year-old daughter who is going to do psychology and thinks she's the epicenter of the world? Or is it a bit too early?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I would give it to your daughter. And B, I have always been really hard on myself. So again, it made me survive. It got me the degree, in, you know, to where I am. It also burnt me out. So it's a yin yang. I have that proclivity to really give myself a hard time. But again, sometimes I just say it's a recording. It's a recording. It still goes on, but it's a radio in another room. Yeah, but boy, can I give myself a hard time. Especially after this, I'll say, who did you think you were? But, you know, but still I figure, okay, I wrote the book, screw you, nobody else did.
I'm really sorry, we're going to have to end, I'm so sorry. Forgive us for running out of time, but time does that. But you can come to the signing tent later. I urge you to buy this book, it's quite brilliant, and it's for us all. So we're going to... Oh, it's called Sane New World by Ruby Wax.
By me.
And it's in, it's actually Ruby's second book. She has written another book, a sort of biography first. But she will be signing copies of this in the signing tent, which is just when you go out of here, it's down to the left. So please come, and you can speak to her then, and you can ask her your question then. But can you join me in giving the most enormous vote of thanks to Ruby?